If you've ever watched someone you love forget the worst day of their life, only to relive it again the next morning, you understand that grief isn't always a straight line. Sometimes it's a circle. And for Margaret Chun, that circle began every single day at 6:47 a.m., when she reached across cold sheets and remembered, for just one moment, that something was wrong. Then she'd forget. And the forgetting, her family would learn, was both mercy and curse. This is the story of what happened when they tried to break the cycle, and discovered that some kinds of love refuse to be forgotten, no matter what the mind does to protect itself. Stay with me through every word. I promise the ending will make everything worth it, and you'll never look at breakfast the same way again. Margaret's hand found the empty side of the bed before her eyes opened. 63 years of marriage had trained her body to know the landscape of absence. The sheets on Robert's side held no warmth. She patted the space twice, a habit, then sat up and checked the bathroom. The light was off. The door hung open. She checked the clock. 6:47 a.m. Tuesday. Robert must have already gone downstairs. Margaret pushed herself out of bed, her joints offering their usual morning complaints, and shuffled toward the kitchen. The house on Maple Street had been there since 1967, 3 children raised here, 4 grandchildren who'd learned to walk on these hardwood floors, 1 great-grandchild who just turned 2. The walls held layers of paint and wallpaper, each one marking a different decade, a different version of who they'd been. She started the coffee maker. 2 scoops for her, 3 for Robert. He liked it strong enough to wake the dead, he always said, and she'd always rolled her eyes at the phrase, called it morbid. While the coffee brewed, she pulled eggs from the refrigerator. 2 for her, scrambled. 3 for Robert, over easy runny yolks that he'd sop up with buttered toast. She moved through the familiar choreography without thinking, crack, whisk, pour, flip. The toast popped. She buttered it while it was hot, the way he preferred, so the butter melted all the way through. She arranged everything on the blue plate, the one with the chip on the rim that he'd claimed as his own 30 years ago. Coffee in his favorite mug, the one their granddaughter Emma had made in pottery class, lumpy and uneven and perfect. "Robert," she called toward the stairs. "Breakfast is ready." No answer. He must be in the study already, she thought, lost in one of his crossword puzzles or reading the news on that tablet their son had given him last Christmas. Robert had resisted technology for years, but once he'd discovered he could read the Times without going outside in his bathrobe, he'd become a convert. Margaret carried the plate and mug down the hall. The study door was closed. She balanced the plate on one hand and turned the knob with the other. Empty. The chair where Robert usually sat faced the window, its leather worn smooth in the shape of him. His reading glasses sat on the desk next to yesterday's newspaper, the crossword half finished. A pen lay across the grid, ink dried at the tip. "Robert." She set the breakfast on the desk and walked back into the hallway. "Honey, where are you?" She checked the living room. The television was off, the remote sitting on the arm of his recliner. She checked the bathroom again, more carefully this time. She checked the garage. His car was there, so he hadn't gone out. She stood in the kitchen, the coffee maker still warming her half of the pot, and felt the first stirrings of worry. She checked the backyard through the window. The garden Robert had tended for 40 years stood silent in the early morning light, tomato plants heavy with fruit he'd been so proud of. Where was he? Margaret picked up her phone from the counter and scrolled through her contacts. Her daughter Diane lived closest, just 15 minutes away. She pressed the name. "Mom." Diane answered on the second ring, her voice sharp with instant alertness. "What's wrong?" "I can't find your father," Margaret said. "I made him breakfast, but he's not in the study. He's not anywhere. His car is here, so he didn't drive somewhere." "Did he say he was coming to your house this morning?" Silence on the other end of the line. Then, "Mom, where are you right now?" "I'm in the kitchen. I'm looking for your father." "Diane, I'm getting worried. It's not like him to just disappear without telling me." "Mom." Diane's voice cracked. "Mom, I need you to sit down." "I don't need to sit down, I need to find." "Please. Please just sit down." Something in her daughter's tone made Margaret pull out a kitchen chair. She sat. "What's going on?" Margaret asked. "You're scaring me." She heard Diane take a shaking breath. "Mom, Dad isn't coming home." "Dad. He passed away 2 months ago." "Mom, we buried him on August 12th. You were there. We were all there." The words didn't make sense. Margaret looked at the calendar on the wall. October 15th. "That's not funny, Diane. I'm not joking." "Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." But I made him breakfast. His eggs are getting cold. If this is some kind of... It's not a joke. Mom, you have short-term memory problems. The doctor said it's probably early-stage dementia. You forget things. You forget. You forget that Dad's gone. This happens almost every morning now. Margaret looked down at her hands. They were shaking. I don't understand. I know. I'm coming over right now, okay? I'm getting in the car. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Just stay where you are. The line went dead. Margaret sat in the kitchen chair, the phone loose in her hand, and looked at the breakfast she'd made. 2 plates. 2 coffee mugs. Steam still rising from one of them. Then she saw it, the photo on the refrigerator. Recent from the summer. Her children and grandchildren gathered around her in the backyard. She stood in the center, and the space beside her was empty. Just empty. No Robert. The memories came in fragments, sharp-edged and terrible. Robert collapsing in the garden. The ambulance. The hospital. A doctor with kind eyes telling her words she couldn't process. Choosing a casket. Choosing flowers. Standing beside a hole in the ground while a minister spoke about eternal rest. Emma, her granddaughter, holding her hand and crying. All of it real. All of it true. Margaret stood up and walked to the study. She picked up Robert's breakfast plate and carried it back to the kitchen. She scraped the eggs into the trash. The toast followed. She poured the coffee down the sink and watched the dark liquid spiral into the drain. Then she sat back down at the kitchen table and cried. When Diane arrived, she found her mother in the same chair. Tears dried on her cheeks, staring at nothing. Mom! Margaret looked up. You told me on the phone. About your father. I did. I forgot he died. I know. How many times has this happened? Diane pulled out the chair across from her mother and sat down heavily. She looked exhausted, Margaret noticed. Dark circles under her eyes. Her hair needed washing. Almost every day for the past 6 weeks, Diane said quietly. Sometimes you remember for a whole day. Sometimes you forget again by noon. But most mornings you wake up and he's gone all over again. And I call you. Or your son. Or Catherine. One of us. And you have to tell me. Yes. Margaret closed her eyes. That must be terrible for you. Diane laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Mom, I'm not the one living through it every single day. You are. But at least I forget, Margaret said. You have to remember. You have to watch me discover it again and again. They sat in silence. Finally, Diane said, We've been talking. The 3 of us kids. We think it might be time to look at assisted living facilities. Somewhere with memory care. Somewhere with people who can. No. Mom. This is my home. Robert and I built this life here. I'm not leaving. You can't take care of yourself. Not with the memory issues. What if you forget and leave the stove on? What if you wander outside and get lost? What if? Then I'll deal with it. You can't deal with it if you can't remember it. Margaret's hands flattened on the table. I said no, Diane. This is my house. I'm staying in my house. Diane rubbed her face. Then we need to hire someone. Caretaker. Someone who can be here during the day, make sure you're okay. I don't need a babysitter. You need someone. Margaret wanted to argue, but what could she say? That she was fine? She'd made breakfast for a dead man this morning. She'd searched the house for someone who would never come home. What if, Margaret said slowly, what if you just didn't tell me? Diane's head snapped up. What? When I forget? When I call you looking for Robert? What if you just told me he went to the store, or he's at the doctor, or he's visiting a friend? Something harmless. Something that wouldn't. She gestured vaguely at her face, the tear tracks, the grief. Wouldn't do this to me every single day. Mom, that would be lying to you. Would it be worse than this? Diane stared at her. I don't know. Maybe. You'd spend the whole day waiting for him to come home. And then what? The next morning you'd forget again and we'd have to start over with a new lie. At least I wouldn't spend every day crying. You'd spend every day waiting for someone who's never coming back. Is that better? Margaret didn't have an answer. Emma came by that afternoon. Margaret was in the living room, trying to focus on a book she'd already read 4 times without remembering any of it. Grandma! Margaret looked up and felt her heart lift despite everything. Emma was 23, beautiful in the way young people are beautiful without trying, with her grandfather's eyes and her mother's smile. Sweetheart, what are you doing here? Emma sat down on the couch next to her. Mom told me you had a hard morning. Did she? She's worried about you. Everyone's worried about me. Margaret set the book aside. I'm starting to feel like a problem that needs solving. You're not a problem, Grandma. You're going through something impossible. Emma reached over and took her hand. Her grip was warm, solid, real. Can I tell you something? Emma said. Something I've been thinking about? Of course. When I was little, maybe 6 or 7, I used to spend every Saturday night at your house. Do you remember? Margaret nodded. She remembered those nights with perfect clarity, which felt like a cruel irony now that her recent memories slipped through her mind like water. Grandpa would make his famous pancakes for breakfast, Emma continued. The ones shaped like Mickey Mouse. And every single Saturday night, he'd tell me the same story about the time he saw a bear while camping. Do you remember that story? The one where the bear stole his sandwich? That's the one. He told it to me probably 100 times. Every Saturday the same story, almost word for word. And I never told him I'd heard it before. You know why? Why? Because every time he told it he was so happy. He'd get this excited look in his eyes like he was telling it for the first time. Like he couldn't wait to see my reaction. And I realized that it didn't matter if I'd heard it before. What mattered was that we were sharing that moment together. That we were both right there, present, even if we'd been there 100 times before. Margaret felt tears building again, but different ones. Softer ones. Are you saying I'm like your grandfather telling the same story? I'm saying that grief isn't something you experience once and then you're done. Maybe for you it's happening every day fresh. But you know what else is happening every day fresh? Your love for him. Every morning when you make him breakfast, even though he's gone, you're still loving him. You're still being his wife. And that's not nothing, Grandma. That's everything. Margaret squeezed her granddaughter's hand. When did you get so wise? I learned from the best. They sat together in the quiet of the afternoon, holding hands, while dust motes drifted through the sunlight and the house settled around them with its familiar creaks and sighs. Margaret's son Thomas flew in from Seattle the following week. He sat at the kitchen table with his sisters, all 3 of them looking grim. Margaret made them tea and wished they would just say whatever they'd come to say. Mom, Thomas started. We've been looking into options. I told Diane I'm not going into a facility. Not a facility. In home care. We interviewed several agencies and we found someone we think would be a good fit. Her name is Patricia. She's got 15 years of experience with memory care patients. She'd come every morning, help you with breakfast, keep you company during the day, make sure you're taking your medications. I don't need a stranger in my house. She won't be a stranger for long. Catherine, her youngest, said gently. Mom, we can't keep doing this. We all have jobs. Diane has the kids. Thomas lives across the country. We can't be here every single morning when you... She stopped. When I forget Robert is dead, Margaret finished. You can say it. When you need support, Catherine corrected. When you need someone. And this Patricia will tell me what? When I ask where Robert is. The 3 siblings exchanged looks. We talked to a geriatric psychiatrist, Diane said. She said that lying to dementia patients, what they call therapeutic lying, is sometimes used, but it's controversial. Some people think it's kinder. Some think it's disrespectful. She said the most important thing is what causes you the least distress. And what causes me the least distress is being told my husband is dead every single morning. Margaret's voice rose. Reliving the worst day of my life on repeat? We don't know, Thomas said. That's why we thought Patricia could help. She's trained in this. She'd know how to handle it, what to say, how to redirect. Redirect, Margaret repeated. Like I'm a child having a tantrum. That's not what I meant. Isn't it? The kitchen fell silent. Finally, Margaret said. When does she start? We were hoping Monday, Diane said. If that's okay with you. Do I have a choice? Of course you have a choice, Mom. This is still your house. Your life. We're just trying to help. Margaret looked at her 3 children, all of them middle-aged now, all of them carrying their own grief while trying to manage hers. She thought about how Robert would handle this. He'd probably make some joke, something to cut the tension. Then he'd pull her aside later and tell her it wasn't the worst idea in the world, having someone around during the day. Monday is fine, she said. Patricia arrived at 8 a.m. on Monday morning. Margaret opened the door to find a woman in her 50s with gray-streaked hair pulled back in a practical bun and warm brown eyes that crinkled at the corners. Mrs. Chan? I'm Patricia Okafor. Your children arranged for me to spend some time with you during the day. I remember, Margaret said, which felt like a small victory. She'd woken up this morning and remembered. Robert was gone. She'd made herself breakfast, just one plate, one coffee. She'd cried for 20 minutes in the bathroom, then washed her face and gotten dressed. Patricia smiled. May I come in? They sat in the living room, and Patricia asked gentle questions. What did Margaret usually do during the day? Did she have hobbies? Was there anything that made her anxious or uncomfortable? I used to garden, Margaret said. Robert and I had a whole vegetable patch out back. But I haven't touched it since. Would you like to? Garden, I mean. I don't know. It was something we did together. Doing it alone feels wrong. Patricia nodded. What about things you did by yourself? Before? Margaret thought. I used to knit. I made blankets for all my grandchildren when they were born. But I haven't picked up the needles in years. Maybe we could try that. If you wanted. The day passed quietly. Patricia made lunch. They watched a cooking show together. Patricia didn't hover or condescend. She was just there, present, calm. At one point, Margaret went to the study and stood in the doorway, looking at Robert's chair. Patricia appeared beside her. She didn't say anything, just stood there. I still expect to see him, Margaret said. Every time I walk past this room. Just for a second I think he'll be there doing his crossword. That must be hard. It is. But it's also, I don't know, a comfort? Like part of me refuses to accept he's really gone. Maybe that part knows something the rest of us forget, Patricia said. That love doesn't end just because the person isn't physically here anymore. Margaret looked at her. You've done this before. Sat with people like me. I have. Is it always this sad? Sometimes. But sometimes it's beautiful too. I've sat with people who forgot their spouse died, yes. But I've also sat with people who got to fall in love with them all over again every day through their memories. I've watched people relive their wedding days, the births of their children, their happiest moments fresh and new each time. I don't relive happy moments, Margaret said quietly. I relive the moment I realize he's gone. I know. And I'm sorry. They stood together in the doorway of the study, looking at the empty chair, and Patricia didn't try to fill the silence with platitudes or promises that it would get easier. She just stood there witnessing, present, and somehow that was enough. 2 weeks passed. Then 3. Then a month. Some mornings, Margaret woke up knowing Robert was dead. Those were the easier days, though easier felt like the wrong word for waking up with grief sitting on your chest like a stone. Other mornings, she woke up reaching for him. Those mornings, Patricia was there when Margaret came downstairs looking for her husband. And Patricia, following the family's instructions and the advice of the psychiatrist, told her the truth. Mrs. Chun, I'm so sorry. Robert passed away 3 months ago. Every time the news hit like it was the first time. Every time Margaret felt the world tilt and drop away. Every time, Patricia was there with tissues and tea, and a quiet presence that didn't try to fix the unfixable. Why can't I remember? Margaret asked one morning, after Patricia had told her again. Why does my brain keep doing this to me? The doctor said it's how the memory loss works, Patricia said gently. You remember long-term things, your childhood, your wedding, raising your kids. But short-term memories don't stick anymore. So the information that Robert died, that's recent. It doesn't stay. But I remember you now. I know who you are. How does that work? You've seen me every day for a month. Maybe that's enough repetition that it's starting to stick. Or maybe it's different for different people. Memory is complicated. Margaret held her tea mug, feeling the warmth seep into her palms. I hate this. I know. I hate that I can't even grieve properly. I can't move forward because I keep starting over. Patricia leaned forward. Mrs. Chun, can I tell you what I see? What? I see someone who loves her husband so much that she makes him breakfast every morning, even though he's gone. I see someone who refuses to let go of the rituals of care and devotion that defined her marriage. You're not failing at grief. You're showing up for it every single day in the most painful way possible. That's not strength. That's brain damage. Maybe it's both. Maybe you can be sick and strong at the same time. Margaret looked at this woman who'd become a fixture in her daily life, this stranger who'd become something like a friend, and felt a wave of gratitude she couldn't quite articulate. Thank you, she said, for being here, for not treating me like I'm broken. You're not broken, Patricia said firmly. You're dealing with impossible circumstances with grace. That's not the same thing. Winter came. Margaret stood at the kitchen window watching snow fall on the garden, now dormant and frost-covered. The tomato plants had died back in November. She'd meant to clear them away, but she couldn't bring herself to do it. Robert had planted them. Mrs. Chun. She turned. Patricia stood in the doorway with a box. Your daughter dropped this off yesterday. She said you might want to look through it. Margaret took the box and sat at the kitchen table. Inside were photo albums. Dozens of them. She opened the first one and found her wedding day. She was 22, Robert 24. They looked impossibly young, smiling at the camera with their whole lives ahead of them. She turned pages. Their first apartment. Thomas as a baby. Diane as a toddler. Catherine's birth. Family vacations. Birthday parties. Graduations. The grandchildren arriving one by one. And in every photo there was Robert. Young Robert with a full head of dark hair. Middle-aged Robert going gray at the temples. Older Robert with his warm smile and reading glasses. Patricia sat down across from her. Your daughter thought it might help to have the memories in front of you, even when your brain won't hold on to them. Margaret traced a finger over a photo of Robert in the garden, holding up a massive tomato, grinning like he'd won a prize. Can I tell you something? Margaret said. Of course. Some mornings when I wake up and remember he's gone, there's this tiny terrible moment where I'm almost relieved, because I know I don't have to discover it again. I don't have to go through the shock and the searching and the phone call. And then I feel guilty for feeling relieved. That's not terrible, Patricia said. That's human. Is it? Mrs. Chun, grief isn't noble or beautiful or simple. It's messy and complicated, and sometimes you feel things that don't make sense or seem wrong. Being relieved that you don't have to relive trauma doesn't mean you love him less. It means you're exhausted. Anyone would be. Margaret turned another page. Robert at Emma's college graduation. He looked so proud. I'm tired, Margaret admitted. I'm so tired of hurting. I know. They sat together looking at the photos while outside the snow continued to fall, covering the garden, covering the world, making everything clean and white and quiet. Christmas approached. Emma called to ask if Margaret wanted to spend the holiday at Diane's house with everyone together. I don't think so, sweetheart, Margaret said. I don't want to be the sad old lady in the corner ruining everyone's Christmas. Grandma, you wouldn't ruin anything. We want you there. I know you do, but I think I need to stay here this year. Maybe next year. After she hung up, Patricia said, You know they'll worry about you being alone on Christmas. I won't be alone. You'll be here. Patricia's face fell. Mrs. Chun, I'm actually off Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. I'm going to visit my sister in Virginia, but I can cancel if you need. Don't you dare, Margaret said firmly. I'll be fine for 2 days. Go see your sister. Are you sure? Completely. But when Christmas Eve morning came, Margaret woke up confused. She made Robert's breakfast. She searched the house. She stood in the study looking at his empty chair, feeling panic rise in her chest. Where was he? Why wasn't he here? Today was Christmas Eve. They always spent Christmas Eve together, just the two of them, drinking wine and watching old movies and being grateful for the life they'd built. She called Diane. Mom? What's wrong? I can't find your father. Where is he? Did he say he was coming to your house today? The now familiar silence on the other end of the line. Then Diane, her voice breaking. Mom, it's Christmas Eve. Patricia isn't there, is she? No, she's visiting her sister. Diane, where's your father? Mom, Dad died 4 months ago. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Margaret looked at the breakfast she'd made, the eggs congealing on the plate, and felt the information settle over her like a weight. Oh, she said softly. I'm coming over right now. No, you have the kids. You have Christmas Eve plans. Mom, I'll be okay, honey. Promise. I needed to hear your voice. I'm okay now. She hung up before Diane could argue. Margaret stood in her kitchen on Christmas Eve, alone in a house that suddenly felt enormous, and made a decision. She poured herself a glass of Robert's favorite wine. She turned on the television and found It's a Wonderful Life, the movie they'd watched every Christmas Eve for 40 years. And she talked to him. I know you're not here, she said to the empty room. I know you're gone, but I'm going to pretend, just for tonight, that you're sitting in your chair and I'm sitting in mine and we're watching this movie together like we always did. Is that crazy? Maybe it is. But I think you'd understand. She talked to him throughout the movie. She told him about Emma coming by last week, about how Thomas had called from Seattle, about the new blanket she was knitting. She told him she missed him. She told him she was angry at him for leaving. She told him she was angry at herself for forgetting. When the movie ended, she raised her wine glass to the empty chair. "Merry Christmas, Robert," she said. "I love you. I'll see you tomorrow." And the thing was, she knew she would. Because tomorrow morning or the morning after that, she'd wake up and forget he was gone, and she'd make him breakfast, and for those few minutes before someone reminded her of the truth, he'd be alive again. Was that a curse or a blessing? She didn't know anymore. Spring arrived. The garden began to wake up. Green shoots pushed through the soil, persistent, refusing to acknowledge that the gardener who'd planted them was gone. Margaret stood at the window watching and made a decision. "Patricia, will you help me with something?" They went outside together. Margaret found Robert's gardening gloves in the shed, too big for her hands but comforting nonetheless. She knelt in the dirt and began to clear away the dead plants from last season. Patricia knelt beside her and worked in silence, pulling weeds, turning soil. "He loved this garden," Margaret said. "He always said it kept him grounded." Literally. She smiled at the old joke. "What did you grow?" "Tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers. He'd spend hours out here. I'd have to call him in for dinner." They worked for an hour clearing and preparing. Margaret's knees ached and her back protested, but it felt good. Necessary. "Could we plant something?" Margaret asked. "Not vegetables. I don't think I can." "Not yet. But maybe flowers? Something that would make it beautiful again." "I think that's a lovely idea." They went to the garden center that afternoon. Margaret walked among the displays, touching petals, reading labels. Finally, she chose marigolds, bright, cheerful, impossible to kill. "Robert always said marigolds were the friendliest flowers," she told Patricia. "He said they smiled at you." They planted them together, Patricia digging holes while Margaret gently settled each plant into the earth, patting soil around the roots, whispering small encouragements. Over the next few weeks, Margaret tended the marigolds every day. Some mornings she remembered Robert was gone. Other mornings she didn't. But regardless, the garden became her ritual. The flowers didn't care if she remembered or forgot. They just needed water and sunshine and someone to care for them. And slowly, almost without noticing, Margaret found that she was smiling sometimes. Not often. Not for long. But sometimes she'd stand among the marigolds with dirt under her fingernails and feel something that wasn't quite happiness but wasn't quite grief either. Something in between. Something like peace. Emma came by on a Saturday in May with news. "Grandma, I got the job. The one I interviewed for in March. The marketing position. They offered it to me yesterday." Margaret pulled her granddaughter into a hug. "That's wonderful. Tell me everything." They sat in the garden surrounded by blooming marigolds, while Emma talked about the job, her new apartment, her boyfriend who Margaret had met twice and only remembered once. "I'm proud of you," Margaret said. "Your grandfather would be too. He always said you were going to do something amazing." Emma's smile faltered. "Do you? Grandma, do you remember that he's gone? Right now?" Margaret paused. Did she? She searched her memory and found it there. The funeral, the grief, the months of forgetting and remembering. "Yes," she said. "Today I remember." "How often does that happen now?" "More often than it used to. Maybe 3 or 4 days a week now." The doctor said that sometimes the progression of memory loss isn't linear. Sometimes you plateau. Sometimes you even improve a little before it gets worse again. "And on the days when you don't remember?" Patricia tells me. "And I'm sad. But I'm getting not used to it exactly. But I'm learning to let the grief come and go. I can't hold on to it anyway, can I? So when it comes, I feel it. And when it passes, I let it pass." Emma reached over and squeezed her grandmother's hand. "That seems very wise. Or very tired. I'm not sure which." They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the birds, feeling the sunshine warm on their faces. Finally, Emma said, "Can I tell you something? Something I maybe shouldn't say." "Of course. Sometimes I'm jealous. Of your forgetting, I mean. Not the pain of it, not the reliving it part. But the fact that you get days when Grandpa isn't gone. Days when you can still make him breakfast and look for him and believe, even for a little while, that he's just in the next room. I don't get that. I know he's gone every single day when I wake up. The grief never lifts. And sometimes I think it might be a gift in a strange way to forget. even if it means remembering the loss again later. Margaret looked at her granddaughter's face, young and sad and honest, and felt a swell of love. "You know what I think?" Margaret said. "I think there's no right way to grieve. There's no easy way. Whether you remember every day or forget and remember again, it's all hard. We're all just doing the best we can. Are you? Doing the best you can?" Margaret thought about the question. Was she? She was still here. Still getting up every morning. Even the ones when she discovered her husband was dead all over again. Still tending the garden, still letting Patricia help her. Still talking to her children and grandchildren even when she couldn't remember the previous conversation. "Yes," she said. "I think I am." Summer arrived in full force, hot and humid. The garden exploding with color. Margaret sat on the back porch with Patricia, drinking iced tea, watching butterflies dance among the marigolds. "My daughter called this morning," Margaret said. "She thinks I should consider moving in with her. She says the memory loss is getting worse, that I shouldn't be alone so much. What do you think?" "I think this is my house. Mine and Robert's. Every room has memories. Some of them I can still access and some of them are gone, but they're still here, you know? In the walls. In the air. If I leave, I'll lose that. You'll make new memories at Diane's house." "Will I? I can't even hold on to memories for more than a day half the time. What's the point of new memories if they evaporate like mist?" Patricia set down her tea. "Mrs. Chun, can I ask you something?" "Of course. On the mornings when you forget Robert is gone, when you make him breakfast and look for him, when I tell you what happened, is there ever a part of you that doesn't believe me?" Margaret considered this. Sometimes I think, this can't be real. This can't be happening. But then the memories come back and I know it's true." "What if," Patricia said slowly, "what if one morning you didn't believe me? What if your brain decided to reject the information entirely, to hold on to the version of reality where he's still alive? Is that something that could happen?" "With advanced dementia, yes. Sometimes patients create alternate realities. Sometimes they live in the past so completely that the present doesn't exist for them anymore." Margaret looked out at the garden, at the flowers Robert had loved. "Would that be so terrible?" she asked quietly. "To live in a world where he's still here?" "I don't know," Patricia admitted. "Some people would say yes, that it's important to stay grounded in reality. Some people would say no, that comfort matters more than truth. I don't think there's one right answer. What do you think?" Patricia looked at her for a long moment. "I think you deserve peace however you can find it. If that means accepting the reality of Robert's death every day, okay. If that means one day your mind decides it can't accept it anymore and keeps him alive in your memory, then okay. It's your mind, your grief, your choice about how to carry it." Margaret nodded slowly. "I don't think I'm there yet. Most days I know he's gone. And even though it hurts, I don't want to lose that. Because if I forget he died, I also forget that he lived. I forget to miss him. And the missing. That's the last thing I have left of being his wife." Patricia reached over and squeezed her hand. They sat together in the summer heat, two women keeping vigil over a garden full of flowers that smiled at the sun, indifferent to grief and memory and the passage of time. August came. 1 year since Robert died. Margaret woke up that morning and knew. She knew what day it was. She knew what it meant. She lay in bed for a long time, feeling the weight of the anniversary pressing down on her chest. When she finally got up, she didn't make breakfast. She got dressed and went downstairs to find Patricia already in the kitchen. "I thought you might want company today," Patricia said simply. "You didn't have to come in on a Sunday." "I wanted to." They drove to the cemetery together. Margaret brought marigolds from the garden, a bright bouquet that Robert would have loved. She stood at his grave for a long time, reading the headstone over and over. Robert Chen, beloved husband, father, grandfather. The dates of his birth and death bracketing a life. "I'm still mad at you," she told the grave. "For leaving. For not being there when I wake up. For making me go through this alone." Patricia stood a respectful distance away, giving her space. "But I understand," Margaret continued. "I know you didn't choose it. I know if you could have stayed, you would have. And I know that wherever you are, you're probably worried about me. So I want you to know I'm okay. Not great. Not fine. But okay. I'm still in the house. I'm still tending the garden. I'm still here." She knelt and placed the marigolds against the headstone. "I forget sometimes," she whispered. "I forget you're gone and I look for you and I call the kids asking where you are. And they have to tell me. Every time they have to tell me. And I know that's hard for them. I know they're tired. I know I'm becoming a burden. The wind rustled through the trees overhead. But here's what I want you to know. Even when I forget, even when my brain erases the fact that you died, it never erases you. I still know your favorite coffee. I still make your eggs the way you like them. I still check the study because that's where you'd be. My hands remember. My heart remembers. The forgetting isn't complete. Part of me always knows you. She stood up, her knees protesting, and touched the headstone one more time. I love you, she said. I'll see you tomorrow. Or the day after. Or whenever I forget again. And that's okay. Because every time I forget and remember, I get to love you new all over again. Maybe that's not such a terrible thing after all. Patricia appeared beside her, offering a tissue. Thank you, Margaret said, wiping her eyes. For being here. For all of it. It's been my honor, Mrs. Chun. They drove home through the August afternoon, past houses and parks and people living their ordinary lives. And Margaret felt something shift inside her. Not healing exactly. Not closure. But something like acceptance. She was who she was now. A woman who forgot. A woman who remembered. A woman who loved her husband enough to grieve him new every single day if that's what it took. Fall returned. The marigolds began to fade. Margaret deadheaded the spent blooms and prepared the garden for winter. This time she did it without tears. It was just this cycle. Things bloomed and things died and things came back again. Robert would have understood that. He'd been a gardener. One morning in late September, Margaret woke up and reached for Robert's side of the bed. Empty. She sat up and tried to remember. Was he gone? Yes. He died. She waited for the grief to hit. Came but softer now. Worn smooth by repetition. She got up and made herself breakfast. One plate. One coffee. She sat at the kitchen table and looked out at the garden and thought about the life they'd built together. Patricia arrived at 8 as always. Good morning, Mrs. Chun. How are you today? I remember, Margaret said. About Robert. I woke up remembering. How does that feel? Sad. But also, I don't know. Familiar? Like an old friend I've learned to live with. They spent the morning working in the garden, clearing out the summer plants, preparing the beds for spring bulbs. Margaret chose tulips this time. Red ones, Robert's favorite color. We might not see these bloom, Patricia said gently. It depends on how your memory progresses. That's okay, Margaret said. Someone will see them. Maybe Emma. Maybe Diane. The flowers don't need me to remember them to be beautiful. They planted the bulbs together, tucking them into the cold earth, an act of faith that spring would come again, that the world would keep turning, that life would persist even in the absence of the one who'd tended this garden for 40 years. Winter came again. The second winter without Robert. Margaret had good days and bad days. Days when she remembered and days when she forgot. But the pattern had changed. Now, even on the days when she forgot, the remembering came faster. She'd make breakfast and Patricia would gently remind her. And Margaret would feel the information settle into place without the shock, without the devastation. Her brain was learning, she realized. Even if it couldn't hold on to the fact of his death long term, it was learning the shape of the grief. Learning that when someone said Robert died, this was true. This was the reality she lived in now. Is that progress? She asked Patricia one snowy afternoon. Or is it just giving up? I think it's adaptation, Patricia said. You're learning to live with the impossible. That's not giving up. That's survival. Emma visited often. She'd been promoted at her job and was planning her wedding. She sat with Margaret and showed her pictures of dresses, venues, flowers. I wish Grandpa could be there, Emma said, to walk me down the aisle. He would have loved this. He would have, Margaret agreed. He'd have cried during the vows. He was always a crier at weddings. Do you think you'll remember? The day of the wedding? It's in June. Margaret was quiet for a moment. I don't know, sweetheart. I hope so. But if I don't, you'll remind me, won't you? You'll tell me about it afterward. And I'll get to be happy for you all over again. Emma's eyes filled with tears. You're so brave, Grandma. I'm not brave. I'm just still here. There's a difference. But maybe that was bravery too. The decision to keep getting up every morning. Even when morning brought fresh grief or the fog of forgetting. The decision to plant tulips she might not remember come spring. The decision to let her granddaughter get married and trust that the love would be there even if the memory wasn't. On a morning in February, Margaret woke up and something was different. She didn't reach for Robert. She didn't wonder where he was. She simply knew he was gone. He'd been gone for a year and a half. This was her reality. She got up and made breakfast for one. She drank her coffee and looked out at the snow-covered garden and felt neither grief nor peace, just a quiet acknowledgement. This is how things are now. Patricia arrived and immediately noticed. You knew this morning. I did. How long has it been since you forgot? Margaret thought back. 3 weeks? Maybe a month. That's significant progress, Mrs. Chun. But Margaret didn't feel triumphant. She felt strange. Because as much as the forgetting had been painful, it had also kept Robert close. Every morning she woke up and made his breakfast. He was alive in her mind for those few minutes. He existed. And now, I miss forgetting, she said quietly. Is that strange? Patricia sat down across from her. Not strange at all. Because when I forgot, he came back. For a little while he came back. And now he's just gone. Permanently. Really gone. No more mornings where I think he's just in the next room. No more looking for him. He's just not here. You've moved to a different stage of grief. Patricia said gently. You're accepting the permanence of it. I don't want to accept it. I know. Margaret stared at her coffee. When I was forgetting, everyone said it was terrible. They felt sorry for me. Reliving the worst day over and over. But you know what's worse? Remembering. Because when you remember every single day that they're gone, there's no break from it. There's no morning where you get to live in the world where they're still here. It's just loss every day forever. Patricia reached across the table and took her hand. But you're also getting something new. The ability to remember your grief. To build on it. To move through it instead of circling it. Your memory is stabilizing, which means the work you do now, the healing, the growing, will stay with you. What if I don't want to heal? Then you don't have to. Not today. Not on any timeline but your own. They sat together in the winter morning light, holding hands across the kitchen table, while outside the world was white and quiet and the garden slept beneath the snow waiting. Spring arrived for the second time without Robert. The tulips came up just as they were supposed to, bright red, defiant against the brown earth. Margaret stood in the garden looking at them, and Patricia stood beside her. He would have loved these, Margaret said. I'm sure he would have. I'm glad I planted them. Even if I wasn't sure I'd be here to see them. She knelt in the dirt and began to work, pulling weeds, turning soil, preparing for another season. Her hands knew what to do. They remembered even when her mind didn't. Emma came by later that week with wedding invitations. We set the date for June 15th, she said. We're doing it in the garden at Mom's house. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. And Grandma, I want to ask you something. What's that? Grandpa was going to walk me down the aisle. And I know he can't. But would you? Would you walk with me? Margaret felt her throat tighten. Sweetheart, I'm not sure I can. My knees aren't what they used to be, and I might need a walker by then. I don't care if you need a walker. I don't care if we have to go slow. I want you there with me. Both of my grandparents, in whatever way I can have them. What if I forget? What if the day of the wedding, I wake up and I don't remember what's happening? Then we'll remind you. We'll tell you it's my wedding day, and you'll get to be excited all over again. Grandma, I don't care if you remember. I just want you there. Margaret pulled her granddaughter into a hug and let herself cry. Happy tears this time. Grateful tears. I would be honored, she whispered. So honored. The months between winter and summer passed in a blur of activity. Wedding planning. Garden tending. Patricia's steady presence. Margaret's memory continued to stabilize. She went weeks without forgetting now, sometimes even a month or more. But she noticed something else too. The memories of Robert himself were fading. Not disappearing exactly, but losing their sharp edges. She couldn't quite remember the exact timbre of his voice anymore. She couldn't recall the specific smell of his aftershave. The details were blurring, softening, becoming more impression than fact. Is this what happens? She asked Patricia one afternoon. You lose them twice? Once when they die, and once when you can't remember them clearly anymore. Memory fades for everyone, Patricia said. Even people without dementia. That's why we take photos, write things down, tell stories. We try to hold on to what we can. Margaret went to the study that evening and sat in Robert's chair for the first time since he'd died. She picked up his reading glasses, tried them on, saw the world blur into soft focus the way he'd seen it. She opened the desk drawer and found his unfinished crosswords. She picked up a pen and tried to complete one, but she didn't know the answers. She'd never been good at crosswords. That was Robert's thing. She put the puzzle back and closed the drawer. "I'm letting you go," she whispered to the empty room. "Not because I want to, but because I have to. Because holding on so tight is breaking me. And you wouldn't want that." The room didn't answer. But somehow, sitting in his chair, Margaret felt something like permission. Permission to remember imperfectly. Permission to forget. Permission to keep living even though he couldn't. June 15th arrived sunny and warm. Margaret woke up in Diane's guest room. She'd stayed over the night before so she wouldn't have to worry about getting there on time. And for a moment she was confused. Where was she? Why wasn't she in her own bed? Then she remembered. Emma's wedding. Today was Emma's wedding. She got up and found Diane already awake, setting up chairs in the garden. "Morning, Mom. How did you sleep?" "Fine. Nervous. About walking Emma down the aisle? About forgetting. About standing up there in front of everyone, and suddenly not knowing where I am, or what's happening." Diane came over and hugged her. "Patricia will be here. I'll be here. If you get confused, we'll help you. But Mom, you've been doing so well. You haven't forgotten in almost 2 months." "I know. But what if today's the day? What if the stress triggers it? Then we'll handle it. Together. That's what family does." The morning passed in a flurry of preparation. Emma arrived with her bridesmaids, all of them laughing and nervous and beautiful. She found Margaret in the kitchen. "Grandma, you look amazing." Margaret looked down at her dress. Navy blue, simple, elegant. Patricia had helped her choose it months ago. "You look like a bride," Margaret said, taking in Emma's white dress, her radiant smile. "Just like I always imagined. Are you ready?" "As ready as I'll ever be." The ceremony began at 4 o'clock. Guests filled the chairs in Diane's garden. Music played. And then it was time. Emma took Margaret's arm, and together they walked down the makeshift aisle. Margaret's knees protested, but she didn't care. She kept her eyes on Emma's face, glowing with joy, and felt her own heart swell. They reached the altar, and the officiant smiled at them both. "Who gives this woman to be married?" Margaret opened her mouth and for a terrifying second, couldn't remember the words. She couldn't remember what she was supposed to say. The faces of the guests swam in front of her. Where was she? What was happening? Then Emma squeezed her hand, and it all came rushing back. "Her grandfather and I do," Margaret said clearly. "Together." Emma's eyes filled with tears, and she kissed Margaret's cheek before taking her place beside her soon-to-be husband. Margaret sat down in the front row, and Patricia, sitting beside her, whispered, "You did beautifully." The ceremony continued. Vows were exchanged. Rings were given. Emma and her new husband kissed, and everyone applauded. And Margaret sat there watching her granddaughter begin her new life, and thought about Robert, about how he should have been here, about how he would have loved this, about how love persists even when the person is gone, even when memory fails, even when everything changes. She didn't cry. She'd done enough crying. Instead, she smiled and clapped and felt grateful. Grateful to be here. Grateful to remember. Grateful for this day, this moment, this imperfect but precious life. Summer faded into fall again. Margaret continued to live in her house on Maple Street. Patricia came every day. The garden cycled through its seasons. Margaret's memory stayed mostly stable, though she had occasional bad days, moments of confusion, times when the fog rolled in and she couldn't quite grasp where she was in time. But those moments passed. And in between, she had good days. Days when she worked in the garden. Days when she knitted blankets for Emma's future children. Days when she sat on the porch and drank tea and felt the sun on her face and was simply quietly content. Thomas visited from Seattle in October. "Mom, you're doing so well," he said, looking around the house, seeing how she'd kept it clean, kept herself together. "I'm proud of you." "I'm proud of me too," Margaret said. And she meant it. Catherine called every week. "I worry about you," she always said. "I know," Margaret always replied. "But I'm okay. Really." And she was. Not fixed. Not healed. Not the same as she'd been before Robert died. But okay. Surviving. Adapting. Living. On a morning in late November, Margaret woke up and reached for Robert. It had been 4 months since she'd forgotten. 4 months of waking up knowing he was gone. But this morning her hand found empty space and her mind went blank. Where was he? She got up and went downstairs. She made his breakfast. She called his name through the house. Patricia arrived to find her standing in the study, looking confused and frightened. "Mrs. Chan?" What's wrong? I can't find Robert. I've looked everywhere. Do you know where he is? Patricia's face fell. After all these months of progress, the forgetting had returned. Mrs. Chun, she said gently, Robert passed away 2 years ago this August. I'm so sorry. Margaret stared at her. And then slowly the memories returned. Not all at once like they used to, but in pieces. The hospital, the funeral, the garden, the marigolds, Emma's wedding, all of it settling back into place. Oh, she said softly. I forgot. I know. I've been remembering for so long. I thought maybe I was done with this. Done with the forgetting. Memory loss isn't linear. Sometimes it comes and goes. Margaret sat down in Robert's chair. I made him breakfast. I saw. I called for him. I thought he was just in another room like always. Patricia knelt beside the chair. How do you feel? Right now. Margaret thought about it. How did she feel? Sad. Definitely sad. The familiar grief settling back over her like a coat she'd taken off for a while but now had to wear again. But also something else. Something lighter. For a few minutes, she said slowly, I got to live in a world where he was still here. I got to be his wife again, making his breakfast, calling his name, expecting him to answer. And yes, finding out he's gone hurt. It always hurts. But having those few minutes back. That was a gift. A strange, bittersweet gift. Patricia's eyes were wet. That's a beautiful way to see it. It's the only way I can see it. Otherwise, this disease is just stealing from me. But if I can reframe it even a little, if I can see the moments of forgetting as moments when I get him back, even briefly, then maybe it's not all terrible. They sat together in the study, and Patricia didn't try to convince Margaret to see it differently or promise it wouldn't happen again. She just sat there witnessing the way she'd been doing for almost 2 years now. Finally, Margaret stood up. Well, I should eat that breakfast before it gets completely cold. Would you like some? I made enough for 2. They ate together in the kitchen, the sun streaming through the windows, the garden visible outside. Dormant now but full of buried bulbs waiting for spring. December came. Then January. Then February again. Margaret's memory continued its unpredictable pattern. Mostly stable, occasionally forgetting. She learned to roll with it. On the mornings when she woke up knowing Robert was gone, she got up and lived her day. On the mornings when she forgot, she let herself have those few minutes of believing he was still there. And then she let Patricia or her children gently guide her back to reality. It wasn't easy. It was never easy. But it was her life now and she'd learned to live it. One afternoon in late February, Patricia knocked on the door with a serious expression. Mrs. Chun, can we talk? They sat in the living room, and Patricia took a deep breath. I've been offered a position at a facility in Maryland. It's a promotion, better pay, closer to my sister. It's a good opportunity. Margaret felt her stomach drop. You're leaving. I don't have to. I can turn it down. But I wanted to talk to you first, see how you felt. How I feel is that you should take it. You've been here almost 2 years, Patricia. You've put your life on hold for me. You deserve this opportunity. You're not putting my life on hold. This is my life. Taking care of you has been. It's been an honor. But it's not forever. I know that. And you deserve to move forward. When would you leave? End of March. If I take it. Margaret reached over and squeezed Patricia's hand. Take it. Please. Don't give up something good because of me. What will you do? Who will stay with you? We'll figure it out. Maybe it's time I did consider moving in with Diane. Or maybe we'll find someone else. Someone who needs the job as much as you needed it when you started here. Patricia's eyes filled with tears. I'm going to miss you so much. I'm going to miss you too. But Patricia, you've given me something I can't repay. You've sat with me through the worst of this. You've reminded me who I am on the days when I forget. You've been my friend when I needed one most. And now I'm going to do what friends do. I'm going to tell you to go live your life and be happy. They hugged in the living room, holding on tight, both of them crying. Patricia's last day was March 30th. The whole family came to say goodbye, Diane and her kids, Catherine and hers, Thomas who flew in from Seattle. Emma brought her husband. They filled the house on Maple Street with noise and laughter and love. Patricia moved through the rooms, saying goodbye to each person, until finally it was just her and Margaret on the back porch, looking at the garden where tulips were just beginning to push through the earth. I planted those, Margaret said. Me and you. Do you remember? I remember. I wasn't sure I'd see them bloom. But here they are. Here they are. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Margaret said, "I need to tell you something. Something I've never told anyone." "What's that?" "Sometimes when I forget Robert is gone, when I make his breakfast and look for him, there's a part of me that knows. Deep down underneath the confusion, a part of me that remembers. And I think maybe I let myself forget anyway, just so I can have those few minutes where he's still alive. Where I'm still his wife. Where the world hasn't broken yet." Patricia turned to look at her. "Are you saying you forget on purpose?" "I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe my brain is trying to protect me, and I'm just going along with it. Either way, I don't think it's entirely the disease. I think some of it is choice. The choice to live in the past, even briefly, because the present is too hard." "Is that wrong?" "I don't think so. I think it's survival. We do what we have to do to survive." Patricia pulled her into a hug. "You're one of the strongest people I've ever met, Mrs. Chun." "I'm really not. I'm just still here. Still getting up every morning. Still planting tulips. That's what strength is." They held each other while the afternoon sun slanted across the garden, and the world turned slowly on its axis and time moved forward, whether they wanted it to or not. After Patricia left, a new caretaker came. Her name was Lynn, and she was younger, more energetic, different in every way from Patricia. Margaret liked her well enough, but it wasn't the same. It would never be the same. The tulips bloomed in April, bright red against the brown earth, just like Robert would have loved. Margaret tended them every day, talking to them the way Robert used to talk to his tomatoes, encouraging them, praising them, loving them. Emma came by one Saturday and found her grandmother in the garden, hands in the dirt, humming to herself. "Grandma, you look happy." Margaret looked up surprised. "Do I?" "You do." And the thing was, Margaret realized she kind of was. Not all the time. Not consistently. But in this moment, with her hands in the earth and the sun on her face and her granddaughter nearby, she felt something like contentment. "I think I'm learning," Margaret said, "that happiness doesn't have to be permanent to be real. I can be happy for an afternoon and sad tomorrow. I can miss your grandfather and still enjoy the garden. Both things can be true." Emma sat down on the grass beside her. "I'm getting married again." "You just got married." "No, Grandma. That was last June. Almost a year ago." Margaret stopped, her hands stilling in the dirt. Had it really been a year? Where had the time gone? "Oh," she said softly. "I'm sorry. I don't. It's okay. I'm not getting married again. I was just checking if you remembered the wedding." "I do. You were beautiful. I walked you down the aisle." "You did." They sat together in the garden, grandmother and granddaughter, while the tulips bloomed around them and the world kept turning and time kept passing whether they kept track of it or not. Summer came, then fall, then winter again. 3 years since Robert died. Margaret still lived in the house on Maple Street, though now she had Lynn with her during the day and a night nurse 3 times a week. Her memory was worse, she forgot more often now, forgot for longer periods. Sometimes she didn't even remember that she was supposed to remember. But she still tended the garden, still knitted, still called her children, even if she sometimes forgot she'd already called them that same day. On the anniversary of Robert's death, she woke up and knew. She knew what day it was. She knew he'd been gone 3 years. She knew she was 84 years old and losing her mind and living alone in a house that was slowly becoming a stranger to her. She got up and made one breakfast. She sat at the kitchen table and looked out at the garden where fall flowers bloomed, dahlias this year, planted by Lynn but watered and tended by Margaret whenever she remembered. Lynn arrived and found her at the table. "Mrs. Chun? Are you okay?" "I'm thinking," Margaret said, "about my husband, about my life, about what it all means." "What does it mean?" Margaret looked at this young woman who'd been with her for months now, who was kind but not Patricia, who was here but not Robert, who was present but not permanent. "I think it means," Margaret said slowly, "that love is the thing that lasts. Even when people don't, even when memory doesn't, the love is still there, underneath everything. In the garden I plant, in the breakfast I make, in the way I reach for him in the morning even though I know he's gone. The love persists." Lynn smiled. "That's beautiful. It's all I have left. So it has to be enough." They spent the day quietly. Margaret worked in the garden for a while, pulling weeds, deadheading spent blooms. She took a nap in the afternoon. She called Emma, who promised to visit that weekend. As the sun set, Margaret stood at the window and watched the light fade from the garden. 3 years, she whispered to the glass. 3 years, Robert. I'm still here. I'm still planting flowers. I'm still loving you. And I'll keep doing it for as long as I can remember how. And after that, I hope some part of me still knows, still reaches for you, still makes your breakfast and looks for you and expects you to come home. Because if I'm going to forget, I want to forget everything except that. Except you. The garden darkened. The day ended. And Margaret went to bed in a house full of memories, some she could still access and some she couldn't, but all of them part of the foundation that held her up. 5 years later, Margaret no longer lived in the house on Maple Street. She'd finally agreed to move into a memory care facility after a particularly frightening episode where she'd wandered outside in the middle of winter wearing only her nightgown, looking for Robert. Now she lived in a bright room with a window that overlooked a courtyard garden. Her children visited regularly. Emma came every week, sometimes with her young daughter, Margaret's great-great-grandchild, though Margaret couldn't always remember the relationship. Most days Margaret didn't know where she was. She lived in a confused fog, decades collapsing into each other. Sometimes she thought she was young, waiting for Robert to come home from work. Sometimes she thought she was middle-aged, worrying about her children. Sometimes she was present, but those moments were rare now. On a Tuesday morning in March, Margaret woke up in her facility room and looked around, confused. Where was she? This wasn't her house. These weren't her walls. A nurse came in, someone Margaret didn't recognize. "Good morning, Mrs. Chan. How are you today?" "Where's Robert?" Margaret asked. "Where's my husband?" The nurse smiled gently. The question was asked almost every day now. "He's not here right now, Mrs. Chan, but let's get you some breakfast, okay?" Margaret followed her to the dining room, still looking for Robert, still expecting him to appear around every corner. After breakfast, an activities coordinator tried to engage her in a craft project, but Margaret couldn't focus. She kept turning in her chair, scanning the room. "Who are you looking for, Margaret?" "My husband. Have you seen him? Tall gray hair. He was wearing his blue sweater this morning." "I haven't seen him, but I'm sure he'll find you when he needs to." Margaret spent the day searching, up and down the hallways, in and out of rooms, looking for Robert. She didn't find him. She never found him, but she never stopped looking. And that afternoon, when Emma came to visit with her daughter, Margaret looked up at them with confusion but also with something like recognition. "My granddaughter," she said, pointing at the little girl. "That's my daughter, Grandma. Your great-great-granddaughter. Her name is Margaret. After you." Margaret looked at the child, this tiny person carrying her name forward into the future, and felt something shift in her chest. "Robert would have loved her," she said clearly. Emma's eyes filled with tears. "He would have, Grandma. He really would have. Is he here? Did he come with you?" Emma swallowed hard. "No, Grandma. He couldn't make it today." "That's okay. He's probably working in the garden. He loves that garden." "I'm sure he does." They sat together, 4 generations of women, though Margaret could only really perceive one, and Emma told stories about her life, her work, her family. Margaret didn't understand most of it, but she smiled and nodded and held her great-great-granddaughter's small hand, and for those moments she was present. When Emma left, she kissed Margaret's forehead. "I love you, Grandma. I love you too, sweetheart. Tell Robert I'm looking for him, will you? Tell him I'm still here." "I'll tell him." The end came quietly. Margaret died in her sleep on a May morning, with spring flowers blooming outside her window and the sun streaming through the glass. She was 90 years old. She'd outlived Robert by 8 years. Her children gathered to plan the funeral. They chose flowers, marigolds and tulips, the ones she'd planted in Robert's memory. They chose readings. They chose to bury her next to him, in the plot they'd reserved together decades ago. Emma gave the eulogy. "My grandmother loved my grandfather with everything she had," Emma said to the gathered crowd. "When he died, she lost more than her husband. She lost pieces of herself. Her memory, her clarity, her sense of time and place. But here's what she never lost, her love. Even on the days when she couldn't remember his name, she remembered to look for him. Even when she couldn't remember how he died, she remembered to grieve him. Even when everything else faded, the love remained. She looked out at the family, at the friends, at the people whose lives Margaret had touched. The last 8 years weren't easy for her. They weren't easy for any of us. Watching someone you love disappear into confusion and fear and an endless search for something they can never find. That's its own kind of grief. But I choose to believe that even in her confusion, even in her forgetting, she was still connected to him, still loving him, still being his wife in the only way her broken mind would allow. Emma's voice cracked. And now she's with him again, and she doesn't have to search anymore. She doesn't have to forget. She doesn't have to make breakfast for someone who'll never come home. She found him. Finally, she found him. They buried Margaret on a warm May afternoon, under sunshine and blue skies, next to the man she'd loved for 60 years and searched for 8 more. And if you visit the cemetery on certain mornings, if you look closely at their shared headstone, you might see fresh marigolds placed there by Emma or Diane or Catherine or Thomas. You might see the grandchildren stopping by, the great-grandchildren, the great-great-grandchildren, all of them carrying forward the story of a love that persisted beyond death, beyond memory, beyond everything. The story of Margaret and Robert Chun became something the family told and retold, passed down through generations like an heirloom. Emma told it to her daughter, little Margaret, when she was old enough to understand. Your great-great-grandmother loved so much that even when her mind forgot, her heart remembered, Emma explained, holding the child on her lap. Every morning she made breakfast for someone who wasn't there. And that sounds sad, doesn't it? But it was also beautiful. Because love like that doesn't just disappear. Young Margaret listened with wide eyes. Did she ever find him? In the end, yes. I think she did. 10 years after Margaret's death, the house on Maple Street had been sold, passed to a young family with children who ran through the rooms and brought noise and life back to the walls. But before the sale, Emma had gone through one last time to collect the remaining items her family wanted to keep. In the study, she found Robert's desk, the one her grandmother could never bring herself to change. The crossword puzzles were still there, half-finished, the pen dried out after all these years. Emma sat in Robert's chair, the same chair Margaret had sat in, the same chair where he'd spent countless hours, and opened the desk drawer. Inside, she found something she'd never seen before. A journal. Robert's journal. She opened it carefully, the pages fragile with age, and began to read. June 3, 1998. Margaret made pot roast tonight the way my mother used to make it. She remembered I mentioned missing it last week. That's the thing about Margaret. She remembers everything. 40 years of marriage and she still pays attention to the small things. She still notices. Emma turned pages, reading entries that span decades. Robert's daily observations. His thoughts. His love for his wife documented in quiet, consistent detail. December 15, 2010. Margaret's memory is slipping. She asked me twice this morning if I'd taken my medication. She used to only ask once. She seems worried about it, though she tries to hide it. I told her it's fine, we all forget things. But I see the fear in her eyes. She's always been so sharp, so capable. I think she's scared of losing that. Emma's eyes stung with tears. March 22, 2015. Saw the doctor today about the pain in my chest. He wants to run more tests. I'm not scared for myself. I'm scared of leaving Margaret. Who will take care of her if her memory gets worse? Who will remind her to eat breakfast, to take her pills, to lock the doors at night? The kids have their own lives. I can't leave her. Not yet. But he had left her. 2 years later. His heart had given out in the garden, and Margaret had been the one to find him. Emma kept reading, looking for the last entry. August 3, 2017. This might be my last entry. The doctors say it's serious this time. Heart failure, they're calling it. I asked how long. They wouldn't give me a straight answer, but I could see it in their faces. Not long. I'm not ready to leave Margaret. We were supposed to grow old together, well, older. We were supposed to have more time. But I look at her and I see the fear already creeping in. The moments where she forgets what she was saying mid-sentence. Where she can't find the word she's looking for. If I have to go, I hope it's quick. I hope she doesn't have to watch me deteriorate the way I'm watching her mind slowly slip away. And I hope, God, I hope that when I'm gone she forgets. I know that sounds strange. Everyone will tell her that forgetting is the tragedy. That reliving my death every day would be torture. But here's what I think. If she forgets I died, then in her mind I'm still alive. I'm still here. I'm just in the next room or at the store or in the garden. For those moments before someone reminds her, she gets to live in a world where I haven't left her yet. Is that cruel? Or is it mercy? I don't know. But if her mind is going to take things from her, I hope it takes the pain and leaves the love. I hope she spends her days looking for me instead of mourning me. I hope she makes my breakfast and calls my name and expects me to answer. Because as long as she's looking for me, I'm not really gone. I'm I'm still the person she wakes up for. Still the person she loves. Still her husband. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's everything. Emma sat in the chair, her grandfather's journal in her hands, and cried. All these years she'd thought her grandmother's forgetting was the disease. But maybe it was also the gift. Maybe Robert had known, even before he died, that Margaret's broken mind would keep him alive in a way nothing else could. She thought about all those mornings her grandmother had made breakfast for a dead man. All those phone calls asking where he was. All those moments of confusion and searching. And she realized, her grandmother had spent 8 years looking for the love of her life. And in a way she'd found him every single day. Because as long as she was looking, he was still there to be found. 20 years after Margaret's death, young Margaret, now Margaret Chin Walker, married with children of her own, stood in her kitchen making breakfast. 2 plates. 2 coffees. Her husband came downstairs yawning and kissed her cheek. Morning, love. Morning. They ate together in comfortable silence, the kind that comes from years of shared mornings, shared routines, shared life. After her husband left for work, Margaret cleaned up the dishes and found herself standing at the sink, thinking about her great-great-grandmother, the woman she was named after, the woman whose love story had become family legend. Her daughter, age 6, bright and curious, came into the kitchen. Mama, tell me the story about the breakfast. Margaret smiled. Her daughter asked for this story at least once a week. Well, Margaret said, drying her hands and sitting down at the table, once upon a time there was a woman named Margaret, just like you and me, and she loved her husband very much. So much that even when he died, she couldn't stop loving him. Because love doesn't die? That's right. Love doesn't die. So every morning she would make him breakfast, even though he wasn't there to eat it. And some people thought that was sad, but I think it was beautiful, because it meant she was still taking care of him, still being his wife, still loving him with everything she had. What happened to her? She got older and her memory got fuzzy. She would forget that he died. And she would look for him all through the house, calling his name. And every time someone told her he was gone, her heart broke all over again. That's so sad. It was sad. But here's the secret. I think part of her didn't mind. Because every time she forgot, she got to love him fresh all over again. She got to be excited to see him. She got to make his breakfast and anticipate his smile. And for those few minutes before reality set in, he was alive. They were together. Everything was okay. The little girl thought about this. So forgetting was good? Not good exactly. But maybe not all bad either. Maybe it was complicated. The way love is complicated. The way grief is complicated. Margaret pulled her daughter onto her lap. The point is this. When you love someone with your whole heart, that love becomes part of who you are. It lives in your bones, in your hands, in the things you do without thinking. And even if your mind forgets, your heart remembers. Always. Will you forget Papa someday? Margaret hugged her daughter tight. I hope not, sweetheart. But if I do, I promise I'll keep loving him anyway. Just like our Margaret did. 50 years after Margaret's death, Emma was 83 years old, living in the same memory care facility where her grandmother had spent her final years. The irony wasn't lost on her. She sat in her room, looking through the photo album she'd kept all these years. Pictures of her grandmother and grandfather. Pictures of the house on Maple Street. Pictures of the garden. Her own daughter came to visit, bringing Emma's great-granddaughter. A teenager now, smart and kind and curious about family history. Grandma, I'm doing a project for school, the girl said. About family stories. Can you tell me about your grandmother? The one you've always talked about. Emma looked at this young person, this continuation of the family line, and wondered how much she should share. How much she could remember. Her name was Margaret, Emma started, and the story spilled out. The love, the loss, the forgetting, the searching, all of it. The teenager listened, transfixed. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard, she said when Emma finished. Is it? Emma asked. Or is it the most beautiful? Can't it be both? Emma smiled. Yes, I think it can. She looked at the photos again, at her grandmother's face smiling out from the past, frozen in time. You know what I think about sometimes? Emma said. I think about whether she's with him now, whether death reunited them, whether she remembers everything clearly now, or whether it doesn't matter anymore because they're together. Do you believe in that? An afterlife? I don't know, but I like to think so. I like to think that somewhere somehow they're together. And she's not searching anymore. She found him. The teenager reached over and squeezed Emma's hand. I hope so too. 100 years after Robert's death, no one who had known Margaret and Robert personally was still alive. But their story persisted. It lived in the family trees on ancestry websites, where their names appeared as roots of a family that had grown and branched and spread across the country. It lived in the DNA tests that showed connections spanning generations, all tracing back to this one couple who had loved each other so much. It lived in the stories told at family reunions, embellished and simplified over the years but still essentially true. A woman who loved so much she forgot everything except how to love. A historian researching dementia and caregiving in the early 21st century came across Margaret's story through medical records and family interviews conducted years ago. She included a passage about Margaret in her book. Margaret Chen's case illustrates the complex relationship between memory, identity, and love. While her short-term memory deteriorated significantly following her husband's death, she maintained what researchers call procedural memory, the ability to perform learned tasks without conscious thought. For Margaret, the learned task was loving her husband, making his breakfast, looking for him, expecting his presence. Even as her mind lost the ability to hold on to the fact of his death, it retained the deep fundamental knowledge of how to be his wife. In this way, Margaret's story challenges our understanding of what it means to remember someone. Perhaps memory lives not just in the brain, but in the body, in habit, in the automatic gestures of care and devotion that become second nature over decades of love. The book sold modestly, a few thousand copies, but among those readers was a woman whose own mother was beginning to show signs of dementia. She read about Margaret and cried. Then she went home and sat with her mother and decided, if her mother started forgetting that her father was dead, she wouldn't fight it. She wouldn't force reality on someone whose mind was trying to protect itself. She would let her mother live in whatever timeline felt safest, even if it meant living with a ghost. And so Margaret's story did what all good stories do, it spread, changed people. It offered a different way of seeing an impossible situation. In the present day, somewhere in America, a woman wakes up and reaches for her husband. The space is empty. She sits up confused. Where is he? She makes his breakfast, eggs and toast, coffee the way he likes it. She carries it to his study. He's not there. She searches the house, calling his name. Her daughter arrives and gently reminds her. He's gone. He died 2 years ago. The information settles over her like a familiar weight. She's heard this before. She'll hear it again. But for those few minutes before the truth returned, he was alive. He was just in the next room. He was coming home soon. And in those few minutes she was his wife again. Not his widow. Not a dementia patient. Not a woman slowly losing her mind. Just his wife making him breakfast, looking forward to seeing his smile. Is this tragedy or gift? Both. Always both. Love and loss, intertwined so completely that you can't separate them. Memory and forgetting dancing together in an endless loop. The past and present collapsing into each other until time itself becomes meaningless, and all that remains is the gesture, the habit, the love. If you're reading this and you recognize yourself, if you're the person who forgets, or the person who has to keep reminding, or the person watching someone you love slip away into confusion, know this: there is no right way to grieve. There is no correct way to love someone whose mind is leaving even while their body remains. You don't have to choose between honesty and kindness. You don't have to force reality on someone who's living in the past. You don't have to feel guilty for feeling relieved on the good days, or for feeling exhausted on the bad ones. This is hard. Impossibly hard. And anyone telling you it gets easier is either lying or lucky. But here's what Margaret's story teaches us. Love persists. Even when memory doesn't. Even when the person changes. Even when you can't recognize who they've become or they can't recognize who they were. The love is still there, underneath everything, like bedrock. Unshakable. Permanent. Real. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's everything. Maybe making breakfast for someone who isn't there is its own kind of prayer. Its own kind of devotion. Its own kind of faith that love is stronger than death, stronger than disease, stronger than forgetting. Margaret made breakfast for Robert for 8 years after he died. And in doing so, she kept him alive. Not in reality, but in the place that mattered most. In her heart, in her hands, in the daily ritual of love. If this story moved you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Whether you're caring for someone with dementia, grieving a loss, or simply trying to understand what it means to love someone beyond the limits of memory and time, You're not alone. Margaret's story is all of our stories. The specifics change, but the love remains. Always. And if you found meaning in these words, come back tomorrow. There will be another story. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel.